Alrighty, enough about the Texans. Going on to the last team, Jacksonville Jaguars and Urban Meyer. A lot of ads and mainly just additions, not a lot of losses. Mainly just a few, not a lot of big players in terms of free agents. Added a couple defensive linemen, Malcolm Brown from the Saints, Roy Roberson Harris, who I like from the Bears. Also got cornerback Shaquille Griffin from the Seahawks, who I think we talked about before. I felt was overpaid. Um, and also wide receiver Marvin Jones from the Lions. But obviously in the draft, as everyone knows, they got Trevor Lawrence at first round, first overall. Then Travis Etienne also in the first round. And then got a couple of guys that I kind of liked. Defense cornerback Tyson Campbell in the second, who I really wanted my Packers to get. My guy Walker Little in the second, which I was very surprised he went that high. But if he gets healthy and what he was on track to be, I think that's a great pick. And then Andre Cisco, a safety out of Syracuse, who had torn his ACL last year or the year before, I forget. He was coming off an ACL injury regardless, so that's also why his draft stock fell. It obviously added an Urban Meyer in terms of losses. I think it was a couple days ago, traded Joe Schobert, who they just signed the year before, to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a sixth-round pick, which I thought was odd because Schobert had a solid year last year. But Trevor Meyer, we'll see what he's got cooking up there. But otherwise, a lot of new pieces, a lot of new things in Jacksonville. John, what are your thoughts on what Urban's doing down there?
Well, I mean, as you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Urban Meyer.
It's okay, I'm not
So
either.
let's just get that out of the way. That
Yep.
being said, I thought they killed it in the draft. I might go as far to say they had probably the best draft
Yeah.
in the entire league. Obviously, I mean it's hard to screw it up when you have the first overall pick and a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, who has been destined to go number one since he was, in high school, probably even before that. It's once again hard to screw it up when you have another first round pick later in the draft, two second round picks, so many needs that you can draft anybody you want and just go best available, and
Or
you're
take
filling a
some
need.
risks. Andre Cisco, Walker
Right,
Little, guys coming off injuries. You can
right.
take a
Like
few risks.
you're a bad team, so there's no expectations this year, so you can go after the guys who you think have the highest potential. And we talked about this in our draft recap, but all of the guys that Urban Meyer drafted, I think he recruited every single one of them to Ohio State. Now, none of them went, but I think that his knowledge, and I said the same thing about Pete Carroll when he first got to the NFL. There was just a extra level of knowledge that gave him an advantage in the draft because he had known about these guys since they were, sophomores in high school. Like he had been following them, and that led to certain guys like Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor and just the Legion of Boom and what they were able to form through the draft with players who weren't necessarily, as high picks or, as exciting prospects. But Pete Carroll knew. And I think that Urban Meyer has that sort of same advantage initially coming into the NFL because of just being able to follow these guys for so long, that I think he knows the scheme that they need to be in. He knows there's what their talents have been through their whole career, what they're just naturally gifted at, what they need to work on to improve, all these kind of things. So I think he killed the draft. I think he got a lot of really high upside prospects. Uh, I love Travis Etienne. I wasn't going to say that they should draft a running back in the first round,
Yeah.
but I thought he was the best one available.
Hmm.
And I think that pairing him with James Robinson and Carlos Hyde, I really like that running back room just because you have a lot of versatility there. Carlos Hyde's a guy that Urban Meyer is incredibly familiar with because he played at Ohio State for him. Etienne's got a lot of versatility. James Robinson had a really good year last year. Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't expect them to be a playoff team because they're the Jacksonville Jaguars. We saw in the preseason game they struggled a lot. I think their offensive line is going to be one of their main weaknesses, and we saw in the preseason game, they had their starters out there for a long time, and the Browns' backups were still just dominating them in the trenches. So I don't expect them to be a playoff team, but I do think they should be better. When you only win one game, that's not hard to do. Um, but yeah, I think they could get like 5, 6 wins this year. Um, and I think it's a building year. They're building a really young team, and we'll see what happens. I mean, it's hard to set expectations for a team who was just the worst last year,
Yeah.
But I think they could have a similar year to like the Bengals, where you had the first pick, you have the quarterback, and there's not a lot of expectations. You're in a division that has some clear playoff teams, and really all it is about showing growth and building up for the foundation for years to come.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I like the pieces, except for Shaquille Griffin. I mentioned that he got in free agency over Meyer. Obviously, I like the draft. I feel like he, looked a lot off our board. But I think one thing that you alluded to that I'm worried about. I never really thought Urban Meyer's offenses at Ohio State were that revolutionary, even for college. I think we kind of seen that why some of his quarterbacks have, initially kind of came in and flamed out. Even Tim Tebow's going back to Florida. I mean, Alex Smith was the rare exception, but even he took some time, to get accustomed to the league. So I worry about that in the offense, and I worry that it's going to limit Trevor Lawrence's growth to start his career and kind of stunt his growth. That's my main concern. But yeah,
Right.
I like what you mentioned. I mean, the stable of running backs. Obviously, not fantasy wise. I'm not touching that backfield because I don't know.
No,
But
one of my coworkers has asked me about James Robinson, and I'll just say this: I do not expect James Robinson to have the same year he did last year because of Hyde and Etienne
well,
eating into
and then
his
like
snaps.
I'm assuming they're running the same kind of college zone. It's just like we kind of mentioned last year. The spread is kind of dying in the NFL as a main offense, unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs that have a million weapons that can do so. But even as you saw this offseason, the Chiefs invested in big linemen that,
Yep.
and it seems like they're kind of adapting to the current NFL, going back to the under center, running, establishing the run and play action. Yeah, it's old school, but there's a reason it works, and it keeps the defense off balance. So that's what I worry about with Urban Meyer there. I mean, I'm glad it seems like he's not playing favorites. He's making the right moves. Ended up cutting Tebow, after the first preseason game because it's kind of obvious that he was not a tight end. So, but then, like I said, trading Joe Schobert, I don't know why. I thought he's a solid linebacker. We'll see. But and then also too, C.J. Henderson apparently there was like, did he want to trade or did he not? It's only 1 year. So there's a lot of question marks already that have begun under Urban Meyer's tenure. And then, so I'm curious to see how that works out. I'm also can he revive, Caleb on Chason, a guy who was high on last year, also one of their first round picks, didn't have the best year. And, opposite, and they have talent on the defense, like we mentioned before, with the other Josh Allen, the defensive end one, have some solid Miles Jack, like still have solid pieces. So, like you, I expect this team to win at least a couple of games. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those things where they start off, maybe they win a couple of games. People are like, oh, are they a contender? And then they just, lose a whole bunch. Kind of like how the Bengals did last year, like you said. So, yeah, I think 4 to 6 wins is reasonable for this Jaguar team. And yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if 2 of them are from the Texans, and then the other 2 are, I don't know. I haven't even looked at their schedule, but probably other bottom feeder teams. So, yeah. If you're a Jacksonville fan, just hang in there. Like we said with the Falcon fans, y'all are just building for the future. Although it is a shame because I remember a couple of years ago when they had that great defense. In theory, that defense, for the most part, I think like 9 out of their 11 starters would still be on the team this year if they had kept them around. So it's funny how things change quickly in the NFL. But yeah, I don't expect much from the Jaguars, kind of like you are. So.
And real quick, one thing I want to add, I do worry that because of potentially what could happen this year with the Jaguars as a full team, that the media could just all of a sudden become really harsh towards Trevor Lawrence. I think the media, they do this thing in sports all the time, but they sort of anoint this guy as like the next whoever. And for Trevor Lawrence, it's no different. And I think that based off of last year, seeing Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert have success instantly, I think that people are going to expect Trevor Lawrence to do the same thing. And I'm not saying that he's going to have a bad year, but I just think that if he doesn't have the best rookie quarterback year this year, I think it's going to be really easy for all of a sudden the narrative on him to start changing. And is he really that good? And blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Versus like maybe some of these other guys like Mac Jones or Justin Fields or even Trey Lance, who are in far better situations team wise
Or have
and
less
could potentially,
expectation.
yeah, less expectation, just better teams, and could potentially get the starting job like late in the year. And so all of a sudden their 6 games are being compared to Trevor Lawrence's 16 or 17, sorry. And all of a sudden the narrative just becomes negative about Trevor Lawrence. I don't think it's going to impact his confidence at all because he seems like a very rock solid dude and doesn't seem like that's going to affect him. But just throwing that out there that I could 100% see that happening and to be on the lookout for it. And do not buy into any potential media narrative that off of 1 year, Trevor Lawrence is going to be a bust.
Yeah, I mean, there's already the reports, and this is once again why I'm doubting Urban Meyer is already like he's splitting time with Gardner Minshew. They're having a quarterback competition. Like, come on, you took the guy #1 overall. We all know it. We all know he's going to be the starter.
Right.
Stop wasting valuable reps on Gardner Minshew that could be his. You know what I mean? To get him prepared. Because I mean, they have a talented offense. We just named off their running backs. I mean, they still have DJ Chark, who had a really good year 2 years ago, and is just one of those guys I think would be more renowned if he had a better quarterback. And I don't think he'll do. I don't think numbers wise he's going to do that great this season, just because of the Urban Meyer system. Laviska Shenault, I think he was a second round pick last year that had some flashes. So yeah, but like you mentioned, not only is there talent around him, there's the expectation for him because all he's done is win at Clemson. I think he won, and unfortunately, unlike Herbert and Burrow, not coming into an offensive system that's been tried and true in the NFL. Because Zach Taylor worked with Sean McVay and such before he was hired as head coach, and then obviously I know I criticized Anthony Lynn, but hey, he had experience in the NFL, had a system, so.
Went to the playoffs with that system.
Went to the playoffs, exactly. So, yeah, I'm interested, and I just hope it works out for the best. Hopefully, we're both wrong for Jacksonville and mainly Trevor Lawrence and all these other young guys' sake, because this could be one of my favorite watches a couple of years from now. When, if all pans out with Lawrence, Etienne, Campbell, and Walker Little. So, but we'll have to see with that. But yeah, anything else you wanted to add before we call it there?
That's going to be it for me.
Okay.
I mean, the one thing I will add is that this fantasy division, like this division in terms of fantasy, is one that in general I would probably be staying away from. Obviously, Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, Tannehill, like the Titans offense is pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts, there's just a lot of health concerns. Like, with Wentz,
I might get Wentz later in the draft, especially in one of my leagues. That's like a 2 quarterback league. Like I may get him as my third or second guy.
But just a lot of the Colts with the health concerns. There's just question marks for everybody involved, and then the Jaguars, who
don't know who's that running back. I don't know if the
can you trust any of the receivers yet.
I don't think the system's going to lend to be really receiver friendly.
Yeah, and then the Texans, there should be nobody that you touch except for maybe Brandon Cooks and David Johnson.
I don't even think David Johnson because then Philip Lindsay's there, and Mark Ingram, and they also got Rex Burkhead, by the way. They're just doing the full New England there. They're just saying we're getting 5 running backs and we're just going to cycle them, which it's smart on paper. It just sucks on fantasy.
Yeah, I actually completely forgot about Mark Ingram, and I didn't even know about Rex Burkhead.
Yeah.
So